Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Paul Brown Show. This evening, my guest will be Mr. Shaun Corbett. How you doing, sir?
How you doing, Paul?
All right. Tell the audience a little bit about Shaun Corbett.
Well, my name is Shaun Corbett. Most people know me as Lucky.
Okay.
I'm the owner of the Lucky Spot Barbershop, and maybe about 3 years ago, I co-founded an initiative with CMPD called the Cops and Barbers program, and it kind of really took off. I've been owning my business for going into 7 years. February will be 7 years. I've done numerous community service events. I've probably given away maybe over 10,000 book bags, close to 5,000 turkeys during Thanksgiving, maybe close to 5,000 coats in the wintertime, and probably numerous free haircuts. So I'm kind of known, people that know me, I'm kind of known for just doing community service.
First of all, how long have you been a barber?
I actually started cutting hair when I was 13, experimenting on my nephews and my little brother and stuff like that. But I actually graduated from No Grease School of Tonsorial Arts in 2006.
You own your barbershop?
Yes, sir.
How long have you been the owner?
I actually been owning the barbershop since 2011. So coming into probably February, it'll be 7 years.
What inspired you to become an owner?
Actually, the inspiration is funny. I was kind of just kind of thrust into the situation. The owner, he got put in a position to where he just wanted to get out, and the opportunity just kind of fell in my lap. It just kind of fell in my lap. It's actually one of those things. But you know, God don't make mistakes, so it was all planned, I guess.
So what advice do you give to the entrepreneurs out there, the future who want to be entrepreneurs out there in our community? What kind of advice do you give them?
First, I think the first and the most important thing is always have faith. Okay. Because you got to have that faith, because it's going to look, you're going to have many, many days and nights that it's going to look grim. And like I said, have that faith. And then probably secondly, just always don't be afraid to bet on yourself. Because a lot of times when you're an entrepreneur, you're going to be around people that don't share that same vision, or they're hesitant about the vision that you see, or they can't see it. So sometimes you might get put in a position to where you have to be the one to see the vision for them. So when nobody else sees it, you got to be able to bet on yourself and know what you're doing, and what you're doing is the right thing.
How does it feel, Shaun, to wake up in the morning knowing that you own your own business?
How does it feel to wake up in the morning knowing I own my own business? I think it's more, I got a lot to do. You know, I mean, I think the initial, when you first have your business, let's be clear, the excitement, it's like a new toy at Christmas. But after a while, it's like, especially with all the stuff that I do, it's like, it's okay, we got to get it done. Like, we got to get it done. What do I have? Like, I've put together, like, I have a team around me now, so it's more like, okay, what I got to do today? You know, this has to be done, you know, because we do so much. So
Correct. Cops and Barbers is a program you started up. Tell us a little bit about that.
Actually, Cops and Barbers was an idea really that came about with me and my wife right after the Michael Brown verdict. That night when they started rioting in Ferguson, we sat up and we watched CNN to about 3 o'clock in the morning. And it was more of a challenge for my wife. Like, okay, well, what are you going to do about it? Because I was kind of in a way about them tearing up their neighborhood. I'm like, why are they destroying their neighborhood? And you know, just conversations over watching what was going on, it turned into, well, what are you gonna do about it? Because at that time, our son was 18, and he had just got his first car. So it was, in my mind, it was very easy for him to be coming home on a Friday night, him and his friends, you know, 30-day tag, and get pulled over. And as a parent, I asked myself, does my son know exactly the way to dealing with law enforcement during a traffic stop, or even just a simple engagement? And he didn't know. I know he didn't know because I didn't know. Because I didn't really have the information to give to him because no one gave it to me. And I felt like one of the things that I definitely took away from the Ferguson incident was, if that officer and Michael Brown would have had some form of dealing that was positive.
Correct.
Some form of relationship, even if they knew each other's name or find out the officer went to school with one of his uncles, some kind of relationship. Anything, or even him just being in the neighborhood, getting out of the car, going to the basketball court, instead of just law enforcing and doing more policing. You know, if that officer was doing more policing of that neighborhood instead of enforcing the law, they would have had some sort of relationship. Even if he worked at the PAL or he remembered Michael from youth football or something, to where that incident wouldn't have escalated to that point. And so, that, like I said, that was one of the biggest things that I took away. And so Cops and Barbers, you know, kind of manifest off the simple fact of the need for people to understand their rights, the do's and don'ts, you know, the proper way of dealing with law enforcement in certain situations, and then also creating opportunities for people to see our police officers outside of the uniform and building those relationships, because at the end of the day, there's definitely a distrust between our law enforcement and our community. And so I feel like as community leaders, it's up to us to create these opportunities, especially for children, to see our police officers in a certain light outside of that uniform.
Okay, what advice did you give your son when it came to having that conversation about when you are confronted by an officer? What should you do? What's the steps?
Well, I think the advice, it's not even the advice that I gave him, because coming into the situation, neither one of us knew. And I was man enough to admit that I didn't know, because up until that point, my outlook on police officers or our law enforcement was the same as probably any other African American man. They stay out my way, I stay out their way. I don't want to be bothered with them, you know. And that was pretty much my outlook on it up until then. And so I think the first thing, or the first, I think leading by example with my son came from me admitting that I didn't know the proper way. You know, showing him, okay, well, listen, son, I know I'm your father, but I don't know. So we're going to learn together. And we took a lot away from that program. Like, we took a lot away from that program. I think that program helped a lot of people, but it's also a lot of work that still needs to be done. But I think the biggest thing was for my son to see me in a vulnerable state, to admit that I don't know everything.
When you partner with the officers, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department, possibly the sheriff as well, what advice do they give you as far as to the youth when they come into that situation?
You mean as far as dealing with them?
Correct.
I think really in this situation, Paul, you have to understand that neither one of us, neither the community nor law enforcement was in the position to give anyone advice, because there was so much of a disconnect and so much of a gap that we didn't know anything about each other. And I think no one was in the position to give anyone advice. We were all learning. We were all, it was more of feelings.
Correct.
Well, I feel like this when you talk to me this way, or you're overly aggressive, and then you would have an officer say, well, I think this when this happens. It was more of that. It was igniting the conversation. So I don't think no one was on a level to give anyone advice, because usually when a person gives you advice, they've been through it, they've experienced it. That program was new. That program was never been done. That program was never done before. And I know personally, because it actually allowed me to travel all over the country. I've been to the White House twice behind that program, and people from other cities look at us as the forefront of dealing with this law enforcement thing.
Correct.
They're very interested in what we're doing here at Charlotte. And so I don't think CMPD, none of us were in the position, the community or the police department was in a position to give advice. We all came together, put everything on the table, and understood that there was a lot that we didn't know about each other. So I don't think it was really giving of advice. It was just more hearing the other person out.
So when you have meetings like these, are the public invited, and what are some of the topics that you basically discuss?
I think, man, the topics they range from everything. They range from police brutality, illicit bias, you know, profiling, education, and definitely the community is invited, man, because we couldn't have that without the community.
Correct.
The most important part of any community is the people. And so without the people actually coming and showing up, it would have just been us sitting in there.
Correct.
And so I think this, to give them the opportunity to speak to your police chief, to speak to your mayor, to speak to your council people, and tell them exactly how you feel. And I think a lot of people, like the first one we had was on Super Bowl Sunday, I think of 2015, and we had like 250 people there. And so at that moment, we knew that we had something. And so we broke it down to this pretty much in 3 phases, man. The open forums where people could get to express themselves and voice their opinions, and then we had the education component where we went directly into the schools to talk directly to the children. And then thirdly, it was just community engagement, because one of the things that I vowed was, I'm not gonna sit up here and talk about we need to work on our relationships if I'm doing all these community events, or all these community events are happening in Charlotte and y'all are not involved. That's just not gonna happen. And so it just came down to the point where, okay, y'all wanna be more involved in the community? Okay, match us in book bags. I buy 1,000, you buy 1,000. Match us in turkeys. I buy 500, you buy 500. And that's how it started. And so what happened was, law enforcement realized that the majority of the people in the community was just that, the people in the community. And you can't have a community without the people. So if you don't have a connection with the community, how can you police an area? How can you police a community if I don't have any kind of connection with the people?
Correct.
And so I think that put a lot of, took the blinders off for a lot of officers, because a lot of them got it, but then you had some that didn't get it. And so I think, you know, everybody took something, everyone, even the ones that got it, they took something different away from it. But everybody took something away from that situation to be able to continue to partner and work, and then also lay the foundation to do other things and continue to work in the community. So I think that was like the biggest thing about it.
In your opinion, do you feel like when a white officer is placed in a black neighborhood, do you feel like he has a different, you know, is he more tense, or is he more able to be, you know what I'm saying, to use force than he?
I believe so, but it can go in many different variations. It can be fear, it can be the not understanding. It's like a ball of wax. You can't just pinpoint one thing in that situation. But I do think that there is a difference between a white officer that doesn't have, it's all about exposure. So if you have a white officer that has no exposure to African American men, don't know why we think, don't know some of the things we've been through, they don't know anything about us. You put him in a situation, he's not gonna understand. And so that creates that friction. And like I said, the cops and barbers allowed us to entertain other avenues. I go to the police academy and we teach a class, and I teach a class using movies. And one of the movies that I use is Boys in the Hood. And you've probably seen Boys in the Hood. Boys in the Hood is a movie about 3 young men. You have Doughboy, Trey, Ricky. They all live on the same street. They across the street from each other. 2 are brothers, 1 live across the street from each other. And the funny thing about it is when they walk out of their house and they walk to the store, they all look exactly the same.
Correct.
So to an officer, those are 3 young African American men, especially in a high area, so they're gonna probably be looked at as drug dealers or gangbangers. But if you never stop and you never talk to these young men, you don't know that Ricky has a scholarship to USC to play football, or you don't know that Trey is getting ready to go to college in Atlanta and he's a straight A student. You don't know these things. And so I think the biggest thing is, even before they get out and get into these police cars, we have to let them know that there is absolutely no way that you can continue to judge a person by his neighborhood or his living circumstances. Like, you can't, they've been doing it and it's not working. So you have to build that relationship, because everyone is different. You might be in a high crime area and everybody looks like a gangbanger to you. But out of that group of 5 people, maybe only 2 are gangbangers. The other ones are scholars. But you don't know that. But once you start to treat everyone the same, that's when you start running into these accidents and sticky situations that we see on TV time and time again.
I sense you really get excited when you providing this type of avenue for our community. Why does that bring on that sense of in Shaun?
I think, man, I think the biggest thing about, I think the excitement is because I'm fulfilling a need. And the fact that I'm fulfilling a need in my people, it fulfills a need inside of me. And then also, I'm a parent, man. I got 4 kids, man. They look at what I do. They look at my movements. They look how I maneuver and things that I think about or things that I deem to be important. And so, just as a parent, you want your kids to be able to stand up for themselves. And not only in the process of standing up for yourself, if there's something that you don't like, what are you gonna do about it? Are you gonna be on the sidelines or the front lines? Are you gonna be the one to make the difference, or are you just gonna complain about the problem? And so, like, one of the things that me and my wife are big on in our house is accountability. If you're not a part of the solution, the only other thing is you're a part of the problem.
Correct.
And so that's that excitement that you see, man. Because like I said, this helping my people, man, it's like that's I don't know. Maybe God just put me here for that, I guess, because I have people all the time say, man, why do you do all the stuff that you do? Because, like, really, to be honest with you, I don't get paid for anything. All these things that you see me do, from the book bags and all that, I pay for out of my own pocket. That's why a lot of times people ask me to come to things and they forget that I'm a barber.
Correct.
They be like, hey, Mr. Corbett, can you come to this? And I be like, okay, well, when is it? Oh, it's on Saturday at 12:30. I be like, well, I can't make it because me working at that barbershop is the reason why I can buy them book bags and the turkeys and all that. So it's, but this help, to get back to answer your question, it's just pretty much just helping my people, man, and the looks on their faces. Because at the end of the day, if you look at us as a people right now, we need more direction. We need more people to step up. We need more Paul Browns. We need more Shaun Corbetts. Like, because at the end